Welcome to another episode of VP's Guest List. I'm your host, VP, and the guest stopping by for a conversation today is a wholesale payments analyst for a big regional bank in the U.S. He served as a POMAC for his chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. He's the friend who always likes to party and travel, and currently he is averaging 300 for his Sunday League basketball game. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Stevenson Serise.
Woo! That's the Shannon Sharp introduction. I love it. I
Yes, sir,
love it.
man. I had to. I had to. How you doing, man? How you doing today? How's DC treating you?
It's going good. It's actually getting warmer, so tomorrow is going to be our first 80-degree day of the season. So it looks like winter's finally wrapping up, and it's about to be what's it called? A hot boy summer.
Okay. All right. I mean, hey, do what you got to do. Just before we start, I want to give an introduction. So, I obviously introduced you as a, wholesale payments analyst for a big regional bank. Can you, give the listeners and viewers a bit of a sense of, what that actually means? What does that entail? What is your day-to-day role? And, just talk about the role a little bit.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So I've actually been in my role for a year now, and essentially what a wholesale payments analyst is like we deal with anything payments related. So if you have a business, and I specifically work in the commercial market. So this is like businesses anywhere where I think it's like revenue to like anywhere from 50 to 100 million or maybe 500 million. I don't remember the exact metrics. But essentially what it is like we go and make your payments life easier. So, um, we set up what we have is our online banking platform. So that's the same as if you had a bank with Chase or Bank of America and you have the app, that online banking platform, we have a commercial version of that. And our commercial platform we have to set it up where clients are allowed to send ACH payments, wire payments. They're able to see information reporting. So either prior day or current day transactions, because they're like commercial clients, we get to charge them for certain characteristics that they want on their online platform, and that's a way that we generate revenue for the bank and stuff. But we have fraud protection, so I mean, we have clients that will send hundreds, 150 checks a month, right? And it's very easy that someone can go in the mail, steal a check, um, erase the name on there, put their name on it, cash it, and then boom, you just lost. You, some clients write $50,000 checks. So like, if you didn't catch that, you could be out $50,000 and we can't reimburse you and stuff like that. So we just have like certain fraud protections in place to protect you from check fraud, ACH fraud, and a bunch of other things. And then also, um, it's a sales position. So I work with my treasury consultant, and they go out and meet in front of clients. We meet in front of clients, and we just sell different products to help make their businesses better. I talked about a lot of how, I guess it makes them make money, but really what we do is like we're making clients' lives easier. Like we basically allow them to make more money in a way.
Okay. Okay. No, yeah, that's very interesting. I never really sat down to think about all the intricacies of a bank, but definitely makes sense to understand, especially when you're dealing with, such high numbers. You're talking $50,000. I mean, hey, I know I definitely don't want to send that to the wrong person.
Absolutely.
So I understand. But just wanted to go back before you got to your current role, right? Because we went to college together, and I know you as a health and exercise science major, right? Can you talk about one, why you did health and exercise major? What was the motivation for that, and then how you pivoted away from that into a more finance related role? Can you touch about on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So, as you know, we both went to Wake Forest together, and health and exercise science, I guess it wasn't going to be my original major. Wake didn't necessarily have a lot of majors to choose from. And for what I wanted to study, I didn't necessarily. And keep in mind, at the time, I was pre-vet, so I wanted to be a veterinarian. but
Okay.
they didn't necessarily, well, one Wake didn't have a vet school or anything like that, so they didn't really have any type of vet classes to take. And then I didn't, when you're pre-vet, it's basically the same as being pre-med. So you have to take the basic chemistry, biology, physics, all of your pre-med classes. But I didn't want to be the traditional biology major, traditional chemistry major. So at that time, you don't have to declare your major until I think it's sophomore year, second semester. So what I actually wanted to do was I was going to create my own major. It was going to be they called the interdisciplinary major or whatever, but I was going to make it I was going to build it out as a global health public health major. But I think my GPA was off by like point 0.3 or 2 points or whatever. You had to have like a 3.4 at the time to do it, and I don't think I had that. So and I said at the time, my fiance will kill me for this, or at the time she did, but I basically told her that like I chose health and exercise science because I felt like it was the easiest healthcare related major. But actually going through the major, like I'm not gonna like it wasn't an easy major, and obviously like nothing at Wake was easy, but that's what I said at the time, and that's what kind of made me go down health and exercise science because there were certain classes that I took in health and exercise science that was um, they basically had certain like public health classes that I wanted to build my major around. So that's what appealed to me, and it was still in the medical field, like um, just to go a little further back. So I went to a academy. So it was a medical research magnet program in high school. So at that point, I was already taking like the magnet biology, magnet chemistry, and then I was doing a bunch of like peer-reviewed research papers. Like we did scientific research. So I just felt like HES aligned with what I had already studied in high school, and that would help me on my journey to like become a vet. So it all just made sense altogether.
Okay. Okay. And so you did health and exercise major and you graduated. So, your next step, can you talk about, going into the master's program because you did a master's in management and, how do you feel like that sets you um, you know, up for your role now? Because the reason why I ask that is, typically people like to get a idea of a pathway, right? What do I need to do in order to get to become someone like you, right? So, can you break down, one, the Masters in Management program, were they helpful? Did you have career advisors, people who helped you, essentially able to get the job that you have now?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, when I went through college, COVID happened, and um, I had already pivoted away from the probably vet school, probably by my sophomore year, anyways.
Mhm.
And I think that's why I wanted to do the like public health thing because I wanted to go into public health, global health, like as a career. And then COVID happened junior year. Um, we're all like investing, learning about stocks, we're learning about real estate, we're learning about just all these financial tools. So I'm like, I've always had like this business background or whatever. So um, at that point in time, the master's program, it's always they're always advertising to Wake students like apply for this, come to this weekend, learn about this. So the summer, I think it was junior year summer into senior year, I basically did the the summer management program, and it was like a 6 week boot camp for the MSM. So by then, I had already enjoyed everything that I was learning. So I was like, okay, it would just be 1 year, 10 months, or just be 1 year right after I graduate, and then by then I would be able to, because at the time I was graduating my HES degree, but I was like, I don't necessarily have that business um, major or background, so I don't know exactly if I would be prepared to get a job in business right when I graduated. So I was like, okay, bet, let me go and do this MSM for 1 year, learn as much as I can about business, and then I could leverage that to get whatever job I needed outside of graduation. So obviously, like, took the business class. I learned about like operations, finance, accounting, like change management, a bunch of different classes, but like in the actual program. like we take a career that summer we take a career class and a business communications class. So they get you to think like a business person, write emails like a business person, construct your resume, your cover letter, all of that. So they're prepping you for it. I'm doing informational interviews once I come in that summer. So I'm interviewing people at like Fidelity, at the financial planning firm. I think it was like Edward Jones. So I'm interviewing all these people asking, hey, you went to Wake, or you in the MSM or whatever, you did these things. Like, can you just tell me about your day-to-day job so I can kind of figure out something that I want? Because all of this is discovery to me. I don't really know. I did a little pivot. Like I was going to be in the medical field my whole life. So I'm like, okay, how do I find out what I want to do with my life? Let me find a little job or whatever. So I'm talking to all these people, and because of that, I was able to figure out like, because like in a way, like a dream of mine, like I wanted to be a financial planner, but I didn't want to work off commission and do all that stuff. But I just like helping people figure out like what will set them up so their money is good, they can retire, and they can be all good and stuff like that. But I was able to learn that from doing these informational interviews and stuff like that. And I was able to lock down a job with Truist early on in the program. And then I could just focus solely on the program and get my master's. So that was a pretty good experience. And I'm happy that I was able to go through the master's program.
Yeah, yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah, I do remember the COVID days with the stock market, at least I lost a lot of money. I don't know about you. I feel like you you might have made some money. That's why I kept you at least still pursuing, but I definitely lost. I feel like I've made it back, but you still remember the pain from doing options on Costco. Costco was a big one. I like the company now, but I definitely lost a lot of money in Costco. But just going back, so you touched about or touched on what the wholesale payments analyst is. Can you give some insights, what a typical day looks like? When are you, get into the office per se, what does your day look like? Is it meetings? Are you, doing some escalations? Are
Mhm.
you also working across different teams, whether it's compliance, tech, etc.? Like, just talk to people so people can get a, primary view inside what a day to day is.
Yeah, of course. So I wake up. I wake up on most mornings at like 7 o'clock in the morning, do my little thing, get ready, and then with DC, I take the metro to work. So I get to the office around basically from 9 to 5. I'm locked in work wise, and I'm in the office. I have to be in the office 4 days a week, but I'm like locked in. Um, and I have various meetings. So there's the payments team, and then there's the commercial team. So the commercial team has the relationship manager and the client support specialist, and then has payments team is the payments analyst, me, and my treasury consultant. So I have two treasury consultants, and they all have RMs aligned to them. And depending on the day, we have certain meetings where we'll meet with, because like how the bank likes to describe it is the RM is the quarterback of the relationship. So they're the ones that like meet with the client. They're the ones that do the prospecting clients, trying to get new clients to come bank with Truist. And then they also, try to get them to sign up for a line of credit or some type of loan. However, fixed rate loan or variable rate loan that they're trying to get them. And then we come in, they introduce the payments teammate to come in and be like, okay, you have a relationship with us, but what do you need from us to make your business succeed? Obviously, the check writing, the account opening, the fees and all that other stuff. That's where we come in. In a way, I feel like we're the most important person for the relationship, because without us, our clients can't really operate as a business, especially if they're heavily on sending wires, or there's a lot of like more sophisticated products that we have too, um, that we'll like go through. But like all of that to say, like a day to day is like I'll have certain meetings. I'll meet with clients, and I'll be like with my consultant. where we just have a conversation with the client. We either sometimes they come to us with problems like, hey, I don't have this account on our online banking platform. Can you add this account? Can you make sure it has these capabilities? If it's a new relationship, we're like, okay, these are the what we'll go through. Like, who is your primary contact that we have to have set up? There's a lot of like legal and compliances, the KYC and stuff like that. We don't necessarily handle that. That's what somebody else handles. But once that's all established, I have to go and verify that this person that's contacting me is this person. Because if not, and I'm changing their accounts and it's a fraudulent person or something like that, that can put them at risk. And then we have to disclose pricing. So we have a whole process of sending them different pricing and stuff like that. And then, so we have those meetings. It is a lot of meetings, and then it's a lot of like just inputting things into Salesforce and our platforms just to make sure that the day-to-day systems are working, and then I have to also meet with the commercial team and my consultant just to make sure that the pipeline hygiene is good. And what I mean by that is we have to kind of plan out our calls, like our calls for 30, 60, 90 days. We have to identify opportunities, and by opportunities, like these are the clients that we're calling on and they're interested in this product. How much revenue would that bring the bank? How much would that bring to our team? And then are we meeting our goals and metrics? And we have a bunch of goals and metrics that we have to meet each month. So that kind of goes about my day to day for real.
Okay. Okay. No, that's very interesting. Very busy. They definitely seem to keep you guys busy there. Just for our listeners and viewers, you know, who are interested in being, wholesale payment analysts for a bank, for example, you know, how would you recommend them to pursue that, vision, right? You sort of had a bit of a, untraditional path with going to school, studying health and exercise science, and then taking a master's to then pivot. What would your advice be for someone looking to, break into this space? Would it be some sort of networking activity, reaching out to recruiters at the bank, or, you know, do they follow your route and go take a master's program? What advice would you give people?
Yeah, so I would say the best way, especially if you're in college, the best way to do it is lock down a summer internship. So the way that like banks work or financial institution is, if you can get a summer internship at least like once or twice with a certain company, and you do well and you make a good name for yourself and you have good connections, you're almost guaranteed a job when you graduate. And I didn't do that because that's not like I said, I kind of figured out what I was going to do after the fact. I was able to like work with Truist because I found them in my career fair, but I joined a leadership developmental program where they kind of shaped and modeled me into finding the role that fit for me and stuff like that. But I would say like that for a payments analyst, there aren't many barriers to entry. You just need a degree. It doesn't necessarily have to be a finance degree or a business degree, anything like that. Obviously, having some knowledge in the financial aspects of things will be more ideal, but there's not much out. Yeah, there's not really any barriers to entry. You do need to have some type of experience, and some jobs they want you to have a whole lot more experience than others. But everything that I do in my role can be taught, and it takes some of it is taught through experience, and then some of it is like sitting through webinars and watching and learning by osmosis and stuff like that. But and then because I work for a bank, there is literally hundreds of banks in the United States, and everyone has a payments team in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, the really big banks, they have more sophisticated products, they have larger clientele, and things are just like much on a larger scale. But you have your community banks, your regional banks, they have payment teams as well. So if you can just like build connections with people and get some interviews and apply, all you have to do is get your foot in the door. Once you get your foot in the door, um, there's payments is just so vast. Like there's so many roles in payments. I'm an analyst, but like there's a commercial card team where it's like all the people that deal with certain cards, and there's the merchant team, and it's the merchant processing. So like if you go to like Starbucks, them being able to accept credit cards and you being able to order on the app, that's all through a merchant processing platform, and that's part of payment. So you could be on that side. Um, there's small businesses, there's the commercial team, there's the middle market team, and then there's the public companies that you'll do payments for. So there's like, and then there's different like region and industries. So you have the commercial real estate, you have the dealerships, you have the medical specialty like hospital groups, non-for-profits, nonprofits. You have all of that. So um, it's I'm not like I said, it's not there's not many barriers to entry into that field. You just need to try to get some experience and put yourself out there, and then once you do that, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great advice. Hopefully, we have some listeners who can adopt that and pursue that career path. Moving, just away into talking about AI for a second, right? AI is a big thing now. I see every day there's some sort of article about AI is going to take our jobs, etc. You know, how do you feel about Truist's approach to innovation in the payment space, right? Do you think that there's a real threat, with the rise of fintech, blockchain, digital currencies, and then AI that could sort of come in and, maybe disrupt the wholesale payments space?
I would say one, I like Truist's innovation. So Truist is like we're growing, and I would say just because of like I think it was March, not March of this year. I guess it was March of last year, but with the collapse of the bank in Silicon Valley, people are fearful of their money. So they would rather put their money in these larger banks. So that in a way, I think Truist is like top seven. So in a way that helps Truist out because like people are gonna bring their capital to these banks. But because Truist has so much capital, they are expanding and investing in their payment platforms and processes. I would say I remember I was talking to somebody or I was in a session or something. They were like 30 years ago, payments was exclusively like checks. It was checks and maybe they had ACH at the time. Like from where we were 20, 30 years ago to now, you have Zelle, you have real-time payments, you have ACH check, you still have all this stuff, but like there's so much different processes and sometimes Truist will need to invest in some of these fintech companies, acquire some of these fintech companies just to make sure that their equipment and what we have and the products that we have are up to date. But I think that AI, in a way, I love AI. I think AI is a great tool. I'm not necessarily fearful of AI. Like, I don't think AI will take my job in a way, just because we're sales focused, and you need to have that human aspect to talk to a person in order for them to understand certain things. And like, I mean, it's the most respectful way possible, but people are not smart. So like you have people who own these businesses, but they're on the older side of things. So like because they're like like they make millions or thousands and thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they're running these businesses right. They're So think older people like 50, 60, 70, they are not tech savvy. So like they were used to coming in the branch, depositing checks and stuff like that. Now things are online and stuff like that. So would they necessarily understand our platforms? Like just go talk to an AI agent? What if the AI that can't answer the question that they have? And obviously AI is going to like expand from where it is now. Like I use ChatGPT all the time and I use the free version. The I think the paid version is much better. It remembers who you are and it can learn off of you and stuff like that. So you might get better feedback. But I think our some of our like leaders, like the market presidents and C-suite people in the bank, I think they are accessing Copilot on their Microsoft like Word, Microsoft, I think Microsoft Teams and all that stuff. So they're able to incorporate AI now. So it's like when they have these meetings, boom, you don't have to sit there taking notes because the notes are already summarized for you. Like that saves time. So what AI can do for us when we start like incorporating in our day-to-day businesses is it's going to save time. It's going to make stuff more practical, and we can also use it for like gap analysis. There's certain things where I'm trying to figure out if a client has this, but are they protected by fraud? And we might not have the system to figure that out, but AI could, and it could save a lot of time and make things a whole lot better for us as the workers, but also as our for our clients as well. So AI is cool, man. AI is the future, and in personal and professionally, I use it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, makes sense. I think, yeah. I think especially when you're dealing with, people's money, I definitely think that it's gonna take some time for people to get comfortable with, talking to an AI all the time. And,
Mhm.
I know people already have concerns about people hacking
Right.
into, cameras or whatnot. And even, Shannon Sharp, I think he was saying something recently where he never, he doesn't have email for one. He doesn't have direct deposit until just like recently, 2016 or 2019. And so he's always been going to like collect his check for every job that he's done, right? So it's like those are the people who, to your point, who will not feel comfortable with just interacting with AI and rather talk to a human being because they're very, they're old school. They like to actually see the person or talk to someone real. Not to say AI. I mean, I guess AI is not real. But yeah, I think you make some good points there, and I agree. I think AI definitely serves to complement and not necessarily take your job away. I do think, maybe companies will hire less people, maybe, but the role does not necessarily leave. Um, um, so, but yeah, moving away from that, just wanted to talk about, um, what has been, in your experience, the most rewarding part of your job, right? Your job is definitely a very important, intricate part of the bank. And without that, I'm sure, the bank would run into some regulatory issues or just some, inconsistencies, etc. So, what would you say the most rewarding part of your job so far has been?
That's a good question. The most rewarding part of my job, I would say it could be a split of two things. One of it might be like the recognition you get. Like obviously, like I've been in my role like for a year now, and I didn't understand everything at first, and I didn't pick it up within like my first 2 months there. It took like 6 months, 8 months for me to like for things to start clicking for me to make sense. And now I'm getting recognized for certain things that I'm doing. I'm being my like managers are asking me, "Hey, will you go and show off this platform or speak at this conference for us, represent our team and stuff like that?" And then I'll get kudos and recognized for that. So that just shows that like that shows my growth from where I was a year ago, 2 years ago, how much I've grown and how much I've learned. And then I would say the other thing is actually like one of the reasons why I got into payments was because you actually get to go out and talk to a client. So you get to dress up in your suit. Sometimes you go meet them in person, shake their hand, figure out what they're doing, and you can help because a lot of times, especially if it's a client and it's their own business that they built up from the ground up, um, when you're able to help them out with whatever issue they have, they're super appreciative of you and they're happy. So you're helping them like in a way like achieve their dreams or like help them with their stuff. So that's extremely satisfying. And then even when you're on a virtual call and you're helping out a client, it's just pretty satisfying to be able to help somebody in your own job. And now with the experience that I've gotten, now I'm starting to actually go on solo calls where it's just me and a client, and I'm helping them figure out certain things. And I can pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, this is how this process is going to happen. Do you have any questions? What questions can I answer for you?" And I just think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, I think that's a very good answer. very rewarding to, help others. I think, yeah, I think, for me specifically too, I think, you definitely want to be in a role where you feel like you're not hurting the world. Maybe you're not necessarily saving the world, but, you're at least not
Mhm.
adding to, the damage that, the world will incur or face. But, just talk about, a last question on the banking industry overall. You remember 2008, I'm sure you were a kid back then, you didn't know what was going on, but we had the financial crisis, and that was, generally, um as a direct result of banking underwriting standards being poor, right? So do you
Mhm.
think that the banking industry today is well positioned to mitigate, the '08 crash, for example, right? People are talking about
Mhm.
tariffs and potential recession, with, people not having money to buy cars or, homes, etc. Do you think that, if we were to get some sort of rise in unemployment, whatever the case may be, or just a slower economic environment, do you think that, the banking standards and underwriting standards have improved where we're able to avoid what happened in 2008?
Yeah, so man, I can't believe it. What was that? 2008. I was in what, elementary school, going to class, watching TV. I should have been buying a house, man. I missed out.
We all should have been buying a house, buying gold, buying stocks, buy
All of
buy
that,
everything.
man. Man. But I would say yes and no to your question. No, for example, I mean, what was it? Last year, 2024, the Silicon Valley, that bank collapsed. And it was because I forgot why exactly it collapsed, but I know that people were trying to pull their money out and
Yeah,
it
bank run.
just,
Yep.
yeah, so it collapsed. I would say that there are banks, I do think that there are banks that are too big to fail. Just because of how our financial system is set up and how the Fed is set up and how if they need to step in, they'll go in and basically save certain banks from collapsing. And then how you have, I forgot, I think it was one of the regional banks, but Chase went and bought them up, took all their clients, took all their loans and all that stuff. So they're able to buy them up. But I will say that I think when Obama came into office, he put these stress tests in, and banks have to pass certain stress. They have to pass certain tests, stress tests. It's either like once a year or every 6 months or something like that. For if certain things like that were to happen, and it's depending on your size. So, certain banks, I think like top 10, they are, or not top 10, but it's like based on how much assets you have on the balance sheet, I think it is. You have to meet certain regulatory standards that other banks do or don't have to do. But I will say that like our and like for our bank, and I'm sure other banks did it just because it's industry wide, but commercial real estate was seeing a very large decline in their portfolio. So what we did was we stopped lending to commercial real estate and we got a lot of that commercial real estate debt off of our balance sheet. So maybe like private equity firms or whoever, they were buying that off of, they're buying the debt from us. So we wouldn't have to have it anymore. And essentially what that is that strengthen our balance sheet because now we're not having these high risk loans that are going on. So, I mean, it's tough. Obviously, like coming from a like looking on the commercial side, I would say depending on the bank that you're with, some are more collateralized than others. And then if you're just looking on a consumer level, like we are on our day to day, I still would bank with your regional banks because they can offer you better rates when it comes to car loans, home loans, mortgages, and all of those things. But it also is good to have access to the large banks too. Like you should always have your eggs in multiple different baskets just to be protected and make sure that things are good. Because I mean, some a lot of things. I mean, if you look at the current administration right now, these tariffs, like it's putting strain on different businesses. So you never really know like what may go on in the world that might impact a certain business. So it's always
Yeah.
good just to have yourself diversified to a
Yeah,
certain
no,
extent.
and I agree. And I think also the majority of people, maybe this is not nice to say, but I don't think a lot of people have to be worried because, FDIC insures all, bank deposits up to 250K anyway. So,
Right.
I don't think the average American has 250K in their bank account. So, in that, I do think, yes, if you have, a large bank like Chase, Wells Fargo, Truist, Bank of America fail, it definitely is going to cause a shock to the bank system and people are going to lose confidence. But I definitely think people don't have to be worried from sort of losing their money perspective just because, I mean, like, your money is going to be intact. You're insured by the FDIC. Um, but away from that, away from work, away from banking, just want to talk about your experience in college, right? So, you were part of a fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, which you were the pole mark for your chapter. You know, one, what drew you to become a part of that fraternity? Was there, you had a relative or, you know, friend who was part of it and you just saw it and always admired it, and so once you get the opportunity to, you just joined, or was it something deeper than that?
Yeah, so I didn't have any family that was a in Kappa Alpha Psi. But I guess what drew me into it was I had like some mentors on campus that were Kappas, and um, at the time, I like going into college. I kind of knew I wanted to join Greek life. It was a matter of at that time you had to learn, and if you learned a little bit about Kappas and stuff like that, like in their motto, like they're all about achievement, and obviously, like my whole life, I've been trying to figure out, what life is about achievements. Going to school is an achievement, getting good grades is an achievement, getting a job, paying bills, all of that. Like that's an achievement, and a lot of the core values of CAP was like um, it aligned with what I wanted, and that's why that's what made me do it. And then social wise, the man with the shoulders and just the parties and all that stuff, that all appealed to me. So I was like, okay, okay, that's the reason why I wanted to join it, and then. I was a pole mark in my chapter for 2 years. So I crossed in the spring 20. And I kind of wanted to essentially, like, because Wake is a PWI, I wanted to improve the campus life for Black students on campus. And by joining the fraternity and kind of being like a leader on campus, I could create events and I can put initiatives together and talk to leadership on campus and stuff like that to bring things that other students would want to see and what I would want to see for students that look like me. So that was another reason why I joined the organization and I kind of followed that path.
Got you. And yeah, and I mean, makes sense too, given you're also president of BSA, which is the Black Student Alliance. Just reflecting back now, we're sort of 3 years or so removed away from college. Um, do you feel like you were successful with that goal, right? You said you wanted to, create a safe space or just create a space where you could bring uh Black people together or just people of color together. Do you feel like you were successful? What legacy, so to speak, do you think you left after you left Wake?
Okay. Um, First, let me say I wasn't the president of BSA. I was president of Africasa.
Oh,
My line brother was president of BSA. So, Jacob, if you're watching this, don't kill me. You get your kudos. You get your kudos. But yeah, I would say we were successful because like each year at Wake, Wake is admitting more Black students each year. But I would say that like when we were there on campus and we were putting on these events, like students were coming out to them. We put together this roll bounce event where essentially we brought a skating rink to the gym um, once or twice a year, and all the students would come out, and it wouldn't just be Black students, but like all students would come out and you can go and rent some skates for free and skate around the gym. They had food and all that stuff. So it was just cool events like that. We started a blood drive, a yearly blood drive that we would come and we would try to get people to donate blood. And I don't like the Red Cross. So this was with the blood connection. But like they actually, I think how it is like the Red Cross sells blood to hospitals like at an outrageous amount of money. But the blood connection, like they get these hospitals blood um, at a good rate. And it was like for every person that donated, however much it was, a pint of blood or something like that, you're saving three lives right then and there. So it's events like that that we got to put together where it's like you're seeing the cultural impact, you're seeing the impact of just how it is on campus. And then because we're putting the events on, and then we have new brothers come on the line and on the yard basically what they'll do is they'll keep these traditions alive and have them keep going. And, I keep in contact with my neos, and for the most part, like there's a lot of these events that they're still putting on together. And I would say I enjoyed my time at Wake, and because of these events and the stuff that I was a part of, and because of that, I think that other students did as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and sorry for getting that wrong. I knew you were the president of, because it's funny. I was the vice president of Africasa while you were the
Hmm.
president, so I don't even know how I missed that. Sorry, Jacob, if you're listening to this. But no, I mean, yeah, I think that's great. But I guess besides the legacy you've been able to leave back awake, how do you see being part of the fraternity like impacting your life, moving forward? Have you felt like, maybe you've gotten opportunities, or at least being able to network with people, because of the fraternity? Do you see like the value that the fraternity offers besides, parties, having a brotherhood, all that good stuff in college? Like outside of college, do you see an impact there?
Yeah, I mean, the fraternity is it's global. It's in, I think, all 50 states and stuff like that. So, at some point, you're always going to meet somebody that might have been D9, right? And
Mhm.
I've met coworkers now that were in my fraternity in Ohio and Texas and various areas, North Carolina. So we can chop it up a little bit and have that connection. But that also gives me a connection professionally. Uh, if I wanted to transition to another job, I could, if I've met someone was a noob and um, I built some type of connection with them, they kind of look out for you. So I would say that's one aspect of it, and that kind of helps out. And then uh, also, I would just say it's my goal to sort of get more involved with the organization, like an alumni chapter, because I've been removed from school maybe like for a year or two now, and I still like keep in touch with my chapter. But obviously, it's it's meant to be a lifetime commitment. So at some point, I want to join an alumni chapter, do volunteer work on the side, and still help and be within the community. Just because that's kind of what I signed up for.
Right. Yeah, no, makes sense. Yeah, away from that, you also did other things while in college. More notably, you were the um, basketball manager for the women's basketball team. Talk to us about your experience. And, I think one thing I wanted to say too is if you saw the McNeese basketball manager, McNeese had like I think they won one game in the NCAA tournament, but like the basketball manager actually got an NIL deal and is now being scouted by NFL teams or NBA teams to provide morale. So do you feel like you missed out on a possible NIL deal while you were in college?
Man, I would say, shoot, I loved being a manager. I was a more chill manager. I because being a manager was also part of my work study. I was a little more chill as a manager, so I don't know if I had the aura that manager had. But shoot, I mean, I love that NIL is in the game now. I love that these players are being able to get paid for what they do because being a college athlete is a full-time job. You have to wake up earlier than everybody else. You have to go to class like everybody else. You have to go to practice after you just went to class all day. And then you have to go to mandatory like work study and then not work study, whatever the tutoring. Um, then you have to obviously make sure that your homework and everything's done. Um, you take care of your body, all that other stuff, and then you have to wake up the next day and repeat. And on top of that, like you don't like your summer vacations is on campus working out in some form or fashion. You don't get to really travel as much and stuff like that. So that's a full-time job, and I'm glad they were getting the NIL deals. And I do know what you're talking about with the McNeese manager. That was pretty cool and funny. Social media is crazy because he didn't even do anything special, but it was just something. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think he was just holding the boom box. I mean he has, what the kids call aura these days, but it's like, but hey, it's definitely motivational, and glad to him to, or to, secure the bag. Hopefully we're all able to
mhm.
get paid. So that's the goal. Um but this is a perfect segue into the next topic. I want to touch on personal finance, right? Um, you know, how do you approach personal finance? You talked about how, back in COVID, you sort of got exposed to the stock market and were trading. How is your approach now? Has it changed? You doing options? Do you do stocks? Are you think about real estate? Just talk to us about how you're positioning yourself for, wealth creation, or just bettering your family's life in the future.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would say, how did I get involved in personal finance? I would say like in college was a good like introduction to a lot of things. I think that summer after COVID, like where the stock market crashed in March 2020, right?
Right.
Um, and then Rothschild introduced, I don't know if he introduced you, but I know he introduced me to like E-Trades. And I opened an account that summer when I was home. I had some money from school and I threw some money in the market. I was like, oh, okay, I know exactly what to do. Like everything's shut down right now. We're home. I'm buying Boeing. I'm buying these airline stocks. I'm buying travel stuff. And then at that time the market was down, so market went up. We're making a lot of money. So it was really cool to be able to make money without necessarily working for real. And then around that time, that's when what's it called, the financial literacy boom happened all over social media, where everyone's talking about stocks, everybody's talking about
Forex.
forex, options, real estate, house hacking, everything, right? So another cool thing is that my older brother, um, I guess he knew I had a knack for that stuff or something like that, but he bought me a course from Chris Johnson, this guy that I follow, on just everything stocks. So it's a very easy course to go through. That's my introduction to teaching me about stocks, and I'm like, okay, I'm switching like I'm switching how I'm doing certain things now, compared to when I first started. There's a little more analysis there, a little more research. And then as you go, like each year, like in the market and stuff like that, I've been able to learn and um, more focus on long-term investing, not necessarily quick trades or anything like that, because you could lose a lot of money there. And then even like what's it called, that following summer or that following year when we went back to school, Pang introduced us to options, and I think off of one option contract on Zoom he made $10,000 in 24 hours, and that blew our mind that you could just make money like that. So we all jumped on the option waves, and there was a point in time where at that point in time, I will say the options is like gambling, but even stock market feels like gambling, and gambling's fun. You get that dopamine hit. You're like, oh, I'm gonna buy this. Money goes up, boom, like that gives you that dopamine hit or whatever. So obviously we got super excited with options, and we were able. I made, I think 2,500 at one point in a 24-hour span. I lost like $3,000 in a 24-hour span. So it's just cool to learn that stuff. And then, as well as during that time, interest rates were freaking 2, 3%. So I'm hearing all these people talk about house hacking. I'm like, yeah, man, when I get me a nice little job after graduation, I'm gonna buy this fourplex, this duplex. I'm gonna live in one unit, house hack the other one, then go next year, I'm gonna flip it, buy another one. And then something happens really quick, whereas inflation, and now interest rates are 7%, and now a house that I could have bought for $300,000, the what's it called, the mortgage would have been $1,200. It's 3,000. It's double $3,000. Like if I had to pay $3,000 a month on something and my car payment, I don't know like how I would survive. So I just think that's kind of tough in that aspect. But when it just comes to that, like I set myself a goal, so I really do like investing. Like it brings me a lot of joy. So I do try to invest a lot of money. Like I try to invest almost as much money as I can. So I'm knowledgeable in a lot of financial products. So I max out my HSA every year. I max out my Roth IRA every year. And then I contribute a pretty healthy amount to my 401k. And then I also have a taxable brokerage on the side. So I go through that. And then also with personal finance, I'm into credit cards and credit card points. So I do all of that stuff as well. So when it comes to like manipulating money and making money, all of that is like a light bulb flashes in my head, and it's fun.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, paying definitely introduced us to options, and we made a lot of money, but at the same time, you know, we essentially lost it all. And this was a time where if I recall correctly, we were trying to plan Morgan's trip to Miami, birthday trip to
Hmm.
Miami. So we were definitely gonna ball out, and and it didn't turn out that way at all, man. You need to, you see. I think for me, part of the investment strategy is to learn when to be comfortable, right? Like I think we're just too greedy. Like we made a bunch of money from Zoom, Nike options, and then we wanted to go right back into Costco and make
Yeah,
even more money. It was just like,
yeah,
look, you're just being too greedy, trying to milk the cow. Um, and it didn't turn out right for us. But to your point about the housing market too, I agree. I mean, I think it's a tough market these days, right? Even besides the interest rates, like I was talking to one of my mentors, and he was saying, he bought his home around 07, 08, and this was a time where there was no income verification, right? So he actually was making like 60K a year, but he put down that he was making 200K a
oh
year,
wow,
and that's how you got approved for his loan to buy a home. And obviously you're buying a home, one, without income verification, and then two, home prices were a lot cheaper back then. Like
yeah,
now home prices are just crazy where like it's just impossible to really get a good home for an affordable price anymore. Like
yeah,
especially in LA, DC, New York or something, or Miami, your minimum is probably like $1 million for a home. So
yeah.
it's kind of crazy. Um, you
Yeah, and I
know,
will say, just to
yeah,
like add on to that, I think also because so many like financial things were popping up where it's like learn this, do this, do this. I think you just have to figure out what works for you. We have one friend that, he bought his house and he's setting his goals together to buy another house in the future. And
right,
then me for specifically, like I rock with the stock side of things. What works for you? I've like podcasted out. Like you have me listen to podcast. He's telling the contrarian. He's telling stuff about like contrarian investing and gold, minerals, crypto, all of that. And then I listen to Market Mondays and Chris Johnson's now talking about just Bitcoin, but he was big on dividend investing and long term investing and option trading. And then now I'm Earn Your Leisure. I've been listening to them for like 4 or 5 years. Um, and they're talking about long-term investing and the futures trading and stuff like that. But I followed so many people about specifically like stock stuff. And like I said, I like the financial planning stuff. So I've watched countless videos on that too, where it's like, to me, you can throw money in the market. The United States stock market is it's rigged to go up. So like if you're investing from a 10 to 20 year time frame and you're investing in quality companies, you're not going to lose money.
right.
So in my head, I'm like, I find a lot of joy in this. Like, I don't really care as much on the materialistic things. I'll still buy some things here and there, but like, I find joy when I'm like, oh, I just bought another share of Apple. So for me in that thing, I'm just like, okay, let me throw a bunch of money in. I think one of my goals was like, let me put 50K in my traditional brokerage account, I think by 25 years old. And then at some point, me and my fiance and I, we're going to like retire early, just because of the work that I'm putting in now. So I mean, in that aspect, I'm just like, do that, and then once you get to that point, then I'll diversify. Maybe I'll build a real estate portfolio or just own one home. It's okay. Like, um, the people that are rich right now, they got rich because they honed in on one thing. Like Zuckerberg honed in on Facebook, and then because Facebook did so well, now he was able to WhatsApp and Instagram and all that other stuff. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and, and to your comment about the stock market being rigged to go up, I mean, technically, the stock market is supposed to mirror real GDP growth, which, United States is a, you know, growing economy still, even though it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest. But I do understand what you're coming from. Yeah, I do think, yes, there's a lot of ETFs, there's a lot of buying that allows the stock market to go up. So I see your point from there. But, this is a good segue to talk about personal plans. You mentioned your fiance earlier, and just momentarily as well. You've made a huge step, man. You've made a huge step in life. You got engaged last what October, if I'm not
September,
mistaken,
September.
September.
Hmm.
And marriage is on the horizon, and I believe you guys are getting married in 2026. Talk
Hmm.
to us, man. Talk to us about all the single brothers out there or dating someone looking to pop the question, talk to us, what made you say, hey, you know what, I need to make this next step. This is my person. I'm fully committed to jump into the next phase of life.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that it was more just me maturing, man. Obviously, like, so Morgan and I, we started dating freshman year of college. And I'm sorry, but like freshman, sophomore year of college, I'm not thinking about getting married. Um, Obviously, like, I have intentions, that I want this relationship to last. And at some point that, I think like after like a year of dating someone, you can definitely tell if you could marry them. Like you'll just be like, oh yeah, I can picture this person to like, I grow old with, have my children with, like we be together forever, right? But I mean, at that time, there's so many things that are going on. Like I'm growing. I just graduated from high school. I'm living away from my parents. I don't even make money yet. I don't have a job. I'm still in school, type stuff like that. But I mean, we went through a lot of trials and tribulations. I would say so. Also in college, what was it? We were together almost 24/7, from like freshman year to senior year, right? And then we graduate. I stay at Wake one more year for a master's, and she goes back home. So this is the first time that we're apart. So, this is a different aspect of relationship that we have to navigate through, and ups and downs. And I would say that that was probably one of the hardest points for our relationship. But we got through that. We got through that. Then she ended up going back to school. So we're both in school again. We're traveling to see each other. Obviously, it's pretty easy to either drive or fly to each other. And then, boom, I graduate. I start working, and she's still in school. So now I can just go visit her, now that I'm actually making some money. And then she graduates, and we both graduate. We're in the same city. We're not living together or anything like that. We're still living with our parents, but we're in the same city finally. Things are going. And then, boom, before that, or a little bit after that, she's trying to get a job, and she gets a job in North Carolina. So now she's back to where we went to school. I'm in Georgia. So we're traveling to see each other then. And then the goal is after I finish my program, we trying to be in the same city. So I think I'm trying to move to North Carolina in some aspect. My job sends me to DC. So now I'm in DC, she's in North Carolina. We're this is now maybe like 3 years, maybe not three, 2 years maybe, of now us doing a long distance relationship. Um, so it's like you never like you can have a plan. Things don't ever go to plan, but it's like how do you like how does the relationship go through like the waves? How do you deal with that? And I think that we just dealt with that in um, it worked out for us. Obviously, like there's great times, there's bad times, but um, if you can go through all those moments and still like find love to love each other and still make time to make sure that things are working, make sure each other is happy, then that helps it out. And then when I went through my master's program and uh, the year after that, and then me being in DC, I matured a lot. Just with understanding that I think at the point in time that I was doing things, now the conversation that I'm thinking, because before I was like, oh, I need to have X amount in the bank or X amount invested before I do this, this, and that. And once you learn and once you see because the only like married couple I had experience to were my parents, for the most part, and then my brother got married, so I got to see his dynamic and him getting married, and then Morgan had a friend that got married, and we went to their wedding. I got to see, oh, okay, a wedding and you getting married. It isn't like I thought like a light bulb or something has to flick off in your head, and you're just like, okay, I get it now. But it's more just like you make that commitment to this person. And once all that made sense and we both were like working and we were both ready like for that next step. And that's when it came down to planning the proposal and we had went ring shopping I think a year ago. So I knew what kind of ring she wanted and stuff like that. So I just had to go in and get the ring and then plan out how I wanted to do the proposal. And then boom, I mean, now we got the wedding to plan, which is another fun aspect of the things. And we got to save up for it because weddings are expensive. But I'm super excited. I'm super excited for this next journey that we're about to embark on and just what life has to offer us.
I mean, yeah, I think that, that's a great answer. I think, I've known both of you guys, both you and Morgan, and I can definitely attest to the fact that, you guys have, stuck together, through ups and downs, whether it's long distance or just any curveballs that, life threw at you guys. I think you guys were able to navigate that well. And I think that's that's the point of, marriage, right? I think a lot of people just want to, have it be nice all the time. And sometimes it's not nice, right? I think it's a little bit tough to navigate situations, whether it's, long distance or, being busy with work or just whatever the case is. But you need to have that sort of mutual understanding between each other and continue to choose each other. And that's
Right.
how you move forward. And I think, to your point about not having just a light bulb flick in your head and know that, okay, like this is it. I think you make a great point there, right? You have to choose to be married to this person, or ultimately a choice. You have to choose to spend the rest of your life with this person. Not that I have any experience there or anything like that, but I'm just saying that, that's how I think about marriage, or that's how I just think
Mhm.
about, commitment, and sort of that, relationship standpoint. And so, I'm definitely happy for you guys, and hopefully, I'll be at the wedding, invited to the wedding. Should be a nice one. Um, and yeah, wish you guys all the best there. Pivoting away from that a little bit, want to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers, right? I feel like you're a bandwagon fan to begin with. You're not even a real fan because you're just a LeBron fan. But we're
LeBron,
just gonna
LeBron, LeBron, yes.
but what is your take on, the Lakers winning the championship this year? Or, how far, let's start with how far do you think they're gonna go, right?
Okay, okay, okay. So first off, I am a proud bandwagon. I go
Hmm.
wherever LeBron goes. LeBron's not leaving the Lakers, unfortunately. I've wanted them to leave the Lakers for like 3, 4 years now since he's been there, just because Rob Pelinka. But I mean, he's been doing good the last 2 years or whatever, and on top of that, it's just West Coast time. When you're on the East Coast trying to watch West Coast games, it's terrible, bro. The Lakers games start at 10 p.m., 10:30 some nights, versus when he was in Cleveland and Miami. I got 7:30 LeBron, so the game's over by 10 o'clock, and I can go to bed. Now that I work and stuff like that, trying to watch a Lakers game until 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning is annoying. Um, but
Just move
I
to the
think
West Coast. I mean.
Hey, that's not a bad idea, you know. At this point, I've lived in North Carolina, I lived in Georgia, I lived in DC. I got to go out west. I got to try it out.
Mhm.
But I think they have a good odd to get to the finals. So honestly, I think Boston's going to repeat. Boston's just a stacked team. They're they're healthy. They're healthier than they were. They're healthier this year than they were last year. Um, and they still had a great regular season. They've I don't watch Boston Celtics games as much, but they've been coasting. Like they have their top like 8 players are like a solid rotation ready for the playoffs. I don't think any team will beat them. I think they'll win their first round against oh, it hasn't even decided yet, but I think they'll beat the Knicks in round two, and then I think they'll beat I think Cleveland will go to the Eastern Conference Finals, so I think they'll face off, and I think they'll beat Cleveland in like 6 games. But the Lakers on their side, I would say the West is interesting. The West is pretty good. I think going through the West, I got the Lakers beating Minnesota, Lakers in five, Shannon Sharp. Um, and then I have the Clippers beating Denver. I have OKC beating, that hasn't been decided yet. And I have Houston beating Golden State. It'll be interesting there. I don't know if the way the brackets are set up, if the Lakers and the Clippers can face off. I would say that would be interesting because we never got the Kawhi versus LeBron like playoff matchup that they were trying to set up the last like 3 years or whatever. So that'd be interesting. Um, but I think OKC is a great team. I think if anyone is going to beat the Lakers out in the West, it's going to be OKC. But I think we're going to have a Lakers Celtics matchup, and I think us not having one, the Celtics just that's a nice squad, but us not having a big man, I think is well, I guess we have Jackson Hayes, but I just
He's not a
think
big man, man. Don't even say that.
he's been playing well, but I don't. I think Porzingis beats Jackson Hayes. Jalen Brown did really good on Luca last year. They can guard 1-on-1. Jason Tatum is a solid player. Derek White's nice. It would be a really good series. I think it could go to 6 games. But I think Boston is just set up where they should repeat. And I want you to keep in mind the team Boston just sold their team. If they don't repeat, either if they don't repeat, Derek White, Porzingis, or Jalen Brown won't be on the team after this summer. One of them will get traded because the way the aprons and everything is set up, they are going to be in like some crazy luxury. They paying some crazy luxury tax and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, one, the best time to sell your team is after winning the championship. So I
It was
definitely
like
commend.
seven
I mean,
billion.
I think it was 6.1 if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken.
okay, okay.
Which is, I mean, it's still a lot of money. So even that point one is a lot of money. So
hmm
but yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think the West, you know, you still have the Warriors. I mean, I like the Warriors. I think they haven't, I think people think Steph is old and all that, but hey, I think, he knows he has a lot of experience and he can come in and, give you 30 for sure. Jimmy Butler can also give you like, I don't know, maybe 25 to 30, maybe 20 on the low end. And so, you have some juggernauts over there. And obviously now with the Lakers, you have Luka Doncic, you have, Austin Reeves, who's a playing phenomenal now. You have LeBron James. I don't know how, Luka got to LA, but that's one
That's
day we're gonna have
crazy
a documentary come out, showing how it actually happened. Um,
for sure.
but yeah, I mean, hopefully, maybe the finals game you could come out here. We go to crypto.com, go catch
Hey.
a game, maybe
I
courtside or
will
something. I
say
don't know.
the Warriors they would beat Houston solely based on the fact that you have playoff Jimmy and then you just have the experience of Draymond and Steph. The reason why I
Yep.
think the Warriors are kind of iffy is just because their bench is not that great. Their starting five is solid. Their bench is not that great, and then their size. But I mean, their size hasn't hindered them. They've won 4 rings with not having size, or I guess they had Andrew Bogut for the first one or two.
Yeah.
Um, but I just think that Houston, you have Steven Adams and you have Sengun. So
Yeah.
that's a size, and Ime Udoka, he's a good coach. So that'll be a good series. I'll say that. I'm excited.
Yeah. 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 Hope. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it shapes out. Ultimately, win or lose, they're getting paid, and we're not. At least to the degree that they're getting paid. So sometimes I kind of just don't care sometimes. But I do hope that it's at least good, entertaining basketball that we can all watch. Um, but just get into the end here. I like to leave every show with the guests giving advice to listeners and viewers. And it could be whether it's career related or just life related, or just finance related, whatever you think is a good advice to give people. What advice would you give our listeners here? um you know
I mean, there's so many avenues that I can take this question. It's a very interesting question. But I would just say like one, like social media, like it's engraved in all of our lives. I just want people to remember that social media is not a real place. The stuff that you see on there, like you're gonna see all the glitz and the glamour, but there's a lot of stuff that you don't see. So comparison is the thief of joy. That can go on social media, that can go in these NBA talks with people comparing Jordan and Michael or Jordan and LeBron. Comparing yourself in your career field or to colleagues, stuff like that. Like, try not to compare yourself. Like, be happy. Just try to be as happy as you can be, um, because like every day you're accomplishing something. Every day you're blessed to wake up. Um, you may like you're blessed to be healthy. You can do certain things. And then another thing I would just say is travel. I had the opportunity to study abroad after I graduated, and boy, let me tell you, I went to Spain, France, and Switzerland, and it was a life-changing experience. It gives you a lot of perspective on the world. It lets you like leave your bubble. So like you're more comfortable with venturing out there. You'll meet a lot of people, you'll meet a lot of cultures, you'll try different foods. Um, Definitely just travel the world if possible. And you can start domestically. There's 50 states. There's the United States has so many different wonders. Um, and then I can't wait. I'm putting a pause on traveling this year, but I can't wait to go visit the continent of Africa and Asia and just so many other places in the world. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, the great advice. Thank you. Thank you for stopping by. It was fun to hear your story, how you got into what you're doing. Again, congratulations on the engagement. Hope it's a great wedding, and we'll be excited to see how that shapes out. And, thank you for any advice, all the advice you've given our viewers and listeners today. Thank you very much.